Hey everybody, and welcome to our Wednesday. First of
By
note,
welcome to, we're actually halfway through it.
we are halfway
but
through
we didn't
it.
record anything this morning, so.
No, we were too busy fighting with traffic. If you ever come to Charleston,
Oh my gosh.
just be prepared for traffic. And
If
it's going to take
something
twice as long.
says it's 30 minutes away,
It's an
anticipate
hour.
at least an hour.
Right? Anyway, we went on a harbor tour, a harbor cruise this morning. So we'll put in some footage of that. It was really fun. We sat in comfort, in some air conditioning, had some drinks, and had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah?
A little stuffy. We were on the bottom level of the boat.
Because Stuart didn't want to get sunburned.
That's right. I turned red.
Alrighty guys, now this is Fort Sumter over to the right hand side. Now it was named for General Thomas Sumter, a local Revolutionary War hero here in the Low Country. Now construction began on that fort in 1829 on a location that was originally just a sandbar. And in order to build the base for this fort, they did have to import about 70,000 tons of granite from New England, with most of that granite coming from the Maine region. Now when it was first constructed, it did stand 50 feet high, and it was built into the shape of a pentagon. South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union, and when they did, the South Carolina militia took control of all the harbor forts and batteries here in Charleston, with the exception of the Union-controlled Fort Sumter over there. Now this made for a bit of a dilemma for newly elected President Lincoln. If he withdrew the federal troops, it would acknowledge the end of the Union, and if he sent reinforcements, he would then be considered the aggressor. Now President Jefferson Davis of South Carolina also had a dilemma on his hands. If he allowed the Union to hold Fort Sumter here in South Carolina, he would have headed a weak government, and if he ordered an attack on the fort, he would then be considered a warmonger. Now also over here on the right-hand side, you'll see that rock wall on the shoreline. Now just beyond that is Fort Moultrie, originally named Fort Sullivan. Now the first fort was built back in 1776 out of palmetto logs and sand, but that was reduced to ruin by coastal storms and eventually rebuilt in 1798, second time around using timbers and earth, but that was also too weak compared to those coastal storms, and it was destroyed a second time. Now the current fort you see out there, that was built in 1809 using bricks and earth, so a little bit more sturdy that third time around, as it has kind of stood the test of time here. Now it was modernized in the 1870s, and it was an active fort through World War II until 1947. Now this was also the site of the first major naval engagement of the Revolutionary War, just about 1 week before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Now you may be saying to yourself, this does look like a pretty expensive place to live, and you would be 100% correct in that assumption, as Sullivan's Island is currently one of the most expensive zip codes in the United States to own a house. Now one of the houses out here on the harbor recently sold, for on the harbor side here, recently sold for about $10.5 million, and we do have several celebrities that live out here, more likely their second or third homes, including Reese Witherspoon and Stephen Colbert, as well as NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt Jr. Now Bill Murray used to have a home out here on the island, but Bill Murray was not able to behave himself at the time that he was in his current relationship, or the relationship he was having at that time, sorry. So his ex-wife got custody of that house out here on Sullivan's Island, and Bill Murray did have to move to a different part of Charleston. For those that don't know, he is a very big staple here in the Charleston community. He spends about half his time here in the harbor. He does also partially own the minor league baseball team we have, the Charleston River Dogs. They are one of the farm teams for the Devil Rays down in Florida. Alrighty guys, now this is Patriots Point over to the right. Now you'll see the resort and spa underneath the gray and orange metal roofs, those two buildings there. Beyond that, you'll find the links at Patriots Point, a link-style golf course for those of you interested in getting around in while you're here in Charleston. Now it's also home to the Naval Museum at Patriots Point. You'll see the carrier, the destroyer. There's also a submarine kind of tucked around in there. Now the first ship we're going to talk about is that destroyer just before it disappears behind the carrier. Now that is the destroyer Laffey, designation DD724, and she was built by Bath Iron Works up in Bath, Maine. Now she was commissioned February of 1944, serving until she was decommissioned in March of 1975. Now the Laffey did participate in the bombing of Utah Beach, where she was then reassigned to the Pacific, and on April 16, 1945, while supporting the invasion of Okinawa, she was struck by 4 bombs and 5 kamikaze aircraft from an estimated attack of 50 Japanese aircraft. Now her valiant crew was able to get her back to port, where she deservedly earned the nickname the ship that would have died. Now just to the right of the destroyer, kind of behind this crane barge, which is in a very inconvenient spot right now, you'll see the black structure coming out of the water. That is the diesel-powered submarine USS Clamagore, designation SS343. Now she was built by the Electric Boat Company up in Groton, Connecticut, and she was commissioned June of 1945, serving almost exactly 30 years before she was taken out of service in June of 1975. Now the Clamagore never saw any action in World War II, but in 1962 she did play a major role in the Cuban Missile Crisis, conducting patrols out of the old naval base we used to have here in Charleston. Now they're actually in the process of scrapping that submarine now, as it is becoming a lot to maintain, and very soon it will be sitting on the river bottom of that marina over there if they don't tow it out. Now, like I said, they're scrapping it now. Once they're done with that scrapping process, they'll tow the hull out into the Atlantic Ocean, where they will sink it in one of the deeper parts to become an artificial reef for the wildlife out there. Now the much larger ship there, the carrier Yorktown, designation CV-10. She's also known as the Fighting Lady. Now she was built by Newport News Shipbuilding up in Newport News, Virginia, where all of our carriers are still produced to this day. Now she was commissioned April 15th, 1943, serving until she was decommissioned in June of 1970. Now she's 888 feet long with a beam of 93 feet and a draft of 30, and she was capable of traveling through the water at speeds up to 30 knots. Now when she went on her deployments, she would carry a crew complement of 3,000 men as well as 90 aircraft on board.
We kind of wandered around. We have a walking food tour of Charleston that's coming up in the next half an hour or so. So we wanted to find parking and take care of all that, which took longer. It always takes longer than you think it does. And then we went to find bathrooms and a drink, and went to the Charleston, what's it called? Something market?
The historic Charleston market, I think is what it is.
Yeah, we were there in our last trip to Charleston, and we really had no plans to go there on this trip, but we're like a block and a half away from it, so we stopped there and got some fresh squeezed lemonade, and that was nice. And so now we have about 10 minutes until our food tour starts, and I am very excited. What do you hope that we get to eat?
Delicious food.
Yeah, Stuart.
No oysters.
Yeah, Stuart was saying this morning, I hope they don't try and feed us oysters, because I mean we like seafood, but we don't like oysters.
Right.
Especially if they're raw. Ooh.
Yep.
Hopefully they'll know that that's like a touchy thing. Like some people like that and some people don't, and they won't serve it.
It'd be nice to try some sheet crab soup.
Yeah, we've heard about that all over, and we haven't had a chance to try it. And the other thing I haven't had a chance to have yet is shrimp and grits. So I'm hoping we'll have that. And I think you get desserts on this too. So I think it's like some savory, some sweet. So hopefully we'll get to do that too, because you know I love desserts.
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear us over the air conditioner.
It's hot.
Pretty warm, but
us Pennsylvanians aren't used to this.
All right, so we're gonna sign off for now, and we will we'll have some footage of the food tour, hopefully, as long as everything goes well. And yeah, we'll catch up at some point between now and the next time we check in. So, see you guys later.
The city of Charleston is founded in the year 1670. You have 147 Englishmen and women that come to this area. And we are the oldest English city in America south of Virginia. So Virginia has Jamestown, 1607. New England has 100 English towns older than we are. But once you get south of Virginia, we're the oldest English city in America. And one of the main reasons for that is the southern part of America was much harder for the English to live in because of all the fevers that you had. We have a lot of swampy areas, and you get bit by mosquitoes, you get things like malaria. So people were dying really rapidly down here. And we had a Spanish settlement that tried to colonize here in 1526 called San Miguel de Guadalupe. That settlement failed after only 5 weeks of being here, with 450 of the 600 Spanish perishing in that 5-week period due to Native American attacks and fevers. While you're in Charleston, you're going to hear a term, and that term is Gullah Geechee. Gullah Geechee. A lot of the enslaved Africans that are brought here from the western coast of Africa, they speak different tribal languages. They get here to Charleston, they can't communicate. So Gullah is a language that is created by the enslaved, and it's a blending of West African languages with some English, Spanish, and French. When I hear the term Geechee, I think about the African traditions of Georgia and northern Florida. When I hear Gullah, I kind of think about the Carolina coast. But today, Gullah and Geechee are often thrown together. And again, originally it's a language. So y'all might know some Gullah words. If you've ever sung a song, Kumbaya. Yeah. Kumbaya is Gullah Geechee, and it means come by thee here. So when you're saying Kumbaya, my Lord, you're saying come by thee here, my Lord. That's what you're saying. Originally in Charleston, right, you always built your kitchen as far away from the house as you could get. Because it was really common for kitchen buildings to catch fire. Because you wouldn't just have one fire burning, you typically have 2 fires going. One to create coals that you could put into a stove. The other one, maybe you're hanging pots or hanging meat over. So, and the cooks weren't just cooking for all the white people, they're also cooking for the enslaved on the property as well. So kitchens burned out all the time. Charleston passed a law saying it had to be made out of brick. So it's typically a tiny little brick structure as far away from the house as you can get it. Now the cooks are cooking over these fires. When they get the food ready, literally, they're a hot mess. So the cooks normally don't go inside and serve the food. They would ring a bell or somehow summon the servants from the house to come and fetch the big platters of food. Somehow when those servants were walking between the kitchen and the house, some of those fried shrimp were magically, mysteriously disappearing. They were eating the food. So what the cooks started doing, they started insisting all servants whistle as loudly as possible walking between the kitchen and the house, because it is practically impossible to whistle and eat at the same time. So the area between the kitchen and the house often became referred to as Whistler's Wall. And if you've ever heard the expression, whistle while you work, we think that's one of the places Walt Disney borrowed that from, basically. But imagine if you can for me, servants with big old platters of shrimp whistling. That's like ringing the dinner bell for every dog in the city. Dogs smell the shrimp, they hear the whistling, they hear it coming, buddy, hot, the truck, barking their heads off, jumping up in the servants, eating all the fried shrimp. So to solve that vexing dilemma, the cooks started looking for leftovers, scraps on their cutting boards. And we pretty much put onions, bell peppers, and celery in just about everything we cook here in Charleston. We also fry a lot of food, so you'd have cornmeal and flour laying about. They kind of just gather those leftover ingredients together, mix some water in, made them into little balls, and then they fried them. The servants would carry those fried balls of cornmeal in their waist pockets, so when the dogs would run at them, they'd throw those fried balls of cornmeal at the dogs and shout, "Hush, puppy!" And that's where we get hush puppies from today. We also, on your plate, have the sheep crab soup. So, sheep crab soup. We eat it all the time in Charleston. It is a Charleston delicacy. So we had a mayor in Charleston. The man's name was Mayor Goodwin Redd. And Mayor Goodwin Redd built this hideous building that's 7 stories tall. It's made out of yellow brick. It's rectangular. It's an eyesore. Everybody hates it. So he calls it the People's Building. He wants to try and win back some public support for his project. So he invites his friend, the President of the United States of America, to come and do the grand opening of the building. They put the very first elevator in the state of South Carolina inside of this building. President Taft and Mayor Brett, they go to the top of the building, come back down, and President Taft looks at everybody and says, y'all really got to thank your mayor. The views from the top of this building are some of the most beautiful views I've ever seen. And also riding in that elevator, that was a hoot too. Mayor Brett wants to impress President Taft. And Mayor Rhett had this African-American butler working for him by the name of William Dees. Now, William Dees had formerly worked for a Scottish family and would often make the Scottish family this brown crab stew. And Mayor Rhett tells William Dees, I want you to make me a crab soup, but you got to make it fancy. This is the President of America, after all. So, what William Dees does is he starts off with a roux, bacon grease, butter, and flour. He then adds tightly diced celery, garlic, and onions into the roux. He puts blue crab meat in it, but he also takes the eggs out of the female crab and puts the female crab eggs into the soup as well, which is where the name she crab soup comes from. I actually entered a contest about 11 years ago now to make she crab soup. But it was to raise money for our children's hospital, the Jacob Children's Hospital. It was a $100 entry fee. And basically I was just giving them $100 because I'm not a professional chef. And over 150 people entered this contest, including executive chefs at restaurants. And lo and behold, if I didn't win.
No.
Really? Yeah. Totally cheated. 100%. So, she crab soup is supposed to have female crab eggs. I don't kill female crabs. I'm sexist. I just kill the boys. Because the female crabs have baby crab food, and I want more crabs in the water. So, but I need a little orange flecks in my soup. So I microplaned a carrot, and I threw a really tight dice on it. So the little orange dots in my soup were not crab eggs, they were microplaned carrots. And when you make she crab soup, blue crab meat is so delicate, it tends to just kind of fall apart and almost kind of disintegrate. And I kind of like having a chunkier, crabbier bite. So I went to my dock and I caught a bunch of stone crab. And I love eating stone crab because you take one leg off of the animal and you put the animal back into the creek, and that leg will regenerate over the course of about 1.5 years, and they can totally live and fend for themselves with just the one leg. So you can eat the meat without killing the animal. So to me, that feels just really sustainable, and I feel like I'm being a good guy. And our stone crab legs here, one leg can get to where it's 3/4 of a pound or even almost a pound. So big old chunk of meat on the end. It's not as sweet as the blue crab meat, but it is more dense and it holds together a whole lot better in a soup. I also had like 2 pounds of Canadian snow crab legs in my freezer, and I thawed those puppies out, and I cleaned them, and then I put snow crab meat in it as well. So my she crab soup did not have eggs, and it had stone crab, snow crab, and blue crab. For whatever I want. So. Right? Who cares?
All right, she's coming around. Give it up for our waitress.
Thank you.
Yay, Sharon.
I don't want to hit anything.
Charlotte's going to be taking over. She's absolutely amazing. So
Yeah, oh my gosh, it smells so good.
If you want to wait till I describe it to taste it, you'll kind of know what you're tasting, but it's totally up to you. I'm Charlotte, this is Marilyn, our manager, and Sierra made those plates for you. She's up front. And we're going to walk through tasting, it's 6, 8, 10 of our favorite things in the store. Everything I talk about is right here, and if I describe much of a recipe or you're tasting it, we probably put that card and recipe on it. But if you look around, there are hundreds of things in this store, so I hope you have some time to have fun. Middle of your boat is our pimento cheese. I say our, it's Maryland's pimento cheese recipe, but we just think it's the best in the world. Taste it and tell me what you think. It's so good because it's flavorful. It's not too mayonnaise-y. And it's simple. Raise your hand if you like simple. Yeah, 3 ingredients. Grated sharp cheddar, grate your own if you have a minute. It makes all the difference in the world. Duke's mayonnaise, no sugar in the mayonnaise. and then 2 spoons of this blend. It's called Signature. So you can keep this on your shelf and make this like any time really easy, because those pesky little pimentos are hard to find sometimes, right? Signature, however, is fabulous in a dozen things. Soups, stews, rice dishes, put it on your chicken, your fish. Sean swears she only eats broccoli roasted with this on it. So if you like that flavor, it's got just a tiny, tiny kick of heat. The daddle pepper right at the end, but otherwise it's just a really nice full signature bowl. I'm going to talk about your 3 little crackers that are kind of nestled together, and I'm going to describe them to you by color. The first one is the white with the green flecks. Can you see? Pick that one out. Yep, white with green flecks. This is our classic ranch. So like the old, what was it? Wishbone or, you know, ranch, that dry ranch. My mama put it on everything. And she made dips and dressings, right? Which you can do that too. Mayonnaise, buttermilk, sour cream. But I roast my cauliflower with it because I like that flavor. Throw it in a little sauce, a white sauce, to give it a kick. The big difference between our classic ranch and that Wishbone or Hidden Valley is ingredients you can pronounce. Things you really know, like parsley. Not whatever it is. All right, your next one, star of the show, Marilyn Markle here, created smoky fennel sausage. It's a blend that if you threw this in some ground meat, the bright red, ground meat or beans, ground meat of any kind, or beef, chicken, pork, you're going to get a nice Italian sausage flavor. It's smoky and it holds up really well in tomato dishes, shrimp and grits if you want to bring a little smoky flavor to that. Again, chicken and fish, just as delicious if you like that smoky flavor. Then the dull red in color, the last one sitting by itself there, is our Gullah Geechee blend. Again, created by our store manager. Do you know Gullah Geechee? Do you know that term? I did not mean that to be a test. But I want you to know that this is a very local blend. So a tribute or honor to the Gullah Geechee people, Marilyn looked at how did they cook, what were their tastes, and she created this blend. Delicious, sort of all-purpose. My favorite, roast and sheet, boneless, skinless chicken, squash and onions, or what other vegetable in my fridge is cooked. Roll it all around in some oil and this stuff, bam, in the oven, done, dinner for the week. So delicious. Delicious.
You can see that
And got that local touch. Now the other end, there was one little cracker like that that sat by himself, and that's our Tailgaters blend. Tailgaters is promoted as a grilling because it's a black pepper forward, but I like pepper, so for me, it's my go-to spice. I store it in cream cheese when I have a wrap that needs a little lift up, mayonnaise on a burger, or just throw it on the burger. Delicious. And again, taste is so personal. Then your granola is also created by our store manager, and the blend is called Charleston.
Yeah, you nailed that one. We're getting better.
The granola, the oatmeal, but that right there.
A delicious blend for breakfast kind of things. Your oatmeal, your French toast, waffles,
Tastes like pie.
pancakes, nut breads. But, go with me here. Pork and sweet potatoes. Isn't that a great taste for those? Yeah. So you can really play with these on any scale and the things that you want. Your popcorn is black truffle garlic. You either love it or you don't. Truffle is one of those tastes. And if you love it, you put it on everything. steaks, burgers, fries, eggs, popcorn. It's a delicious.
Very subtle.
It brings flavor. So stir it just in some butter or oil and toss your pasta.
Which I think is what you want from black truffle. You don't want it super strong.
All right, last bite. All right, I'm gonna blow your mind because Marilyn blew my mind. A brownie, simple brownie, make a brownie, but then sprinkle it with sea salt, and then give it a drop of orange olive.
Is it delicious?
I love that.
Now raise your hand if you have ever put oil on your brownie. Oh my God! Delicious
Really
flavor. That oil is really good. Salads, saute your shrimp with it, and then your chicken salad. And then to just close of your show, we have a little sip of hibiscus lemonade with lavender sugar.
I love hibiscus.
You're more than welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for coming in, you guys.
First thing you do when you get a hog is you wrap it in hog wire. You build a fire. We normally use a mixture of hickory and pecan wood. You have to burn the fire down, then you take a shovel and you put the coals where the tail would have been and where the head would have been. You don't put any coals in the middle because the center of the pig is thinner. And if you have coals there, the middle's gonna get too much heat and the outsides won't get enough. So your coals are on the exterior only. And we're gonna probably cook it for about 10 to 12 hours. The reason we call it pulled pork, the hog wire is what you use to flip the animal. Without it, if you tried to just grab it, it would fall apart after cooking for like 7 or 8 hours. So that's kind of the method you flip it with. And then with the last hour or so of cooking, we take our hands and we basically kind of just start shredding the meat apart. You're throwing away anything like fat or gristly, but just kind of shredding it. But if you just did that, the meat would get really dried out. So we mop the meat. We have a bucket of garlic, red pepper flake, and vinegar sauce. And we sit there and we just slather that sauce on to keep the meat from drying out.